Because because a lot of the pros do it.
Yes.
And I think that's nice about it, because I think like with UTCT, I guess a lot of pros do like the 55.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of maybe road runners do that Otter Trail because it's 42. So it's a nice distance to do.
No, completely. And it's so good for strength.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do a trail run, you're so strong on the road. So and I think it's not an easy one. I mean,
it's not.
Yeah,
the elevation
you have
is
to
still
put it out there.
Like 3,000 meters.
Yeah, that Otter is insane. I mean, even just to hike it.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So when did you do the hike?
4 years ago.
Okay.
So it was quite a while, 4 or 5 years ago even. And we trained for that. You know, we were up and down Westcliff stairs with our backpacks on, rocks in the backpacks.
Yeah.
And
did you feel you needed to with your prior training and stuff?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And I mean, you know, put the ego aside there, we would have been fine. But you want to make it as enjoyable as possible. So you don't want to go there and have to struggle.
Yeah.
Although we all caught the flu, so.
I think that's also when you're going through those water and you're walking then with wet shoes.
Yes, yeah. And we had amazing weather. I have to put it out there. We had amazing weather, but there were days where, there was one day where it rained constantly. And you just like shoes are wet, everything is wet. You're in these little like log cabins on the side. It's, you know, there's no heating. You're cold, you're miserable. So you just you've got to be strong.
Yeah. What time of year was that?
That was, when did we do it? Must have been like September-ish, September, October.
Yeah.
We also did it like
around
end
the
of
same
year.
time. Okay.
I think. I don't remember the date. It was around there.
Because I've known people who did it, but long time ago and like their parents did it as well.
Yeah.
And I know obviously it's manageable.
Yeah.
But also with your history of training and everything, you don't actually need to train for that specifically. But I do think a lot of, and that's also what's nice about hiking. You can just see I'm ADHD now. I was in Zanzibar, and there were people that climbed Kilimanjaro that then came to Zanzibar afterwards.
Yes.
And I was looking at the state of these people's bodies. And I was like, how on earth were these people able to do Kilimanjaro? And they were fine.
Yeah.
And there were these old fat ladies. So that's also kind of puts in perspective that, yes,
completely.
You know, it's low intensity-ish, but it's a long duration, obviously.
Completely.
But it is manageable when it's hikes and stuff.
Yeah.
But then now to do 42 Ks as fast as you can,
exactly.
that same route in one day, it's far more difficult.
Yeah, completely. It completely changes. The mental changes. Yeah, the physical needs change.
But I think also it is difficult in other aspects because, you know, the hike, you are you're in your log cabins, you're packing up early morning. It's not just, you know, you staying in a luxurious bed and breakfast the night before. Then you have your breakfast, you can cook whatever you need to. Whereas on the hike, for those 4 days, it's obviously, there's different challenges.
Completely. I mean, you're cooking out of little, you know, tin pots and all that. And, you know, you're in sleeping bags and you've got to pack that all up. And you've got wet clothes. So you're carrying like packets and no, it's huge. But it's, I mean, it's the two different like ends of the spectrum of activities almost, you know, you needed both.
What would you prefer? I'm assuming obviously the run one day.
Yeah. I love hikes. It's so good for you. You know, you have to have that balance to some degree. And I love hikes. And like I say, there is a tough element to them. So it is nice. But I like that. I like to find that dark space in the runs and
when the heart rate's high, when you're doing that for an extended period of time.
You want to feel that. You want to feel the challenges of running on the rocks, of having to quickly climb up a mountain, you know, not just casually take
mosey
your time,
on,
you know.
So then what was your first introduction? Let's just go all the way back in like sport. Like, was it anything in particular, like a particular sport in school?
So primary school it was tennis actually. So I made like nationals and stuff for that, and swimming. So I was a swimmer. So that was my big introduction. And at some stage of my life, I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. That was my dream. And that ended very quickly. But it was swimming.
Why did that end? Just in terms of how big this world is and how good people are?
I probably got a bit nervous. But I just had like coaches and stuff who weren't really supportive. So it kind of just puts a dampener on that, and you don't really believe in yourself. So I kind of just shove that one under the coil. And also, there was also like parts of swimming which I didn't enjoy. It's like, swimming is tough. It's not an easy one to get up in the winter and go do.
I think that's the biggest reason most people don't do, or it's the biggest reason I haven't done a triathlon yet, is because of that swim.
No, that swimming is hell. Even for people who are swimmers, to get up at like 4 a.m. sometimes and have to go get in that pool when it's cold, it's dark, there's nothing nice about it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and people who say it is, they're lying.
Yeah, and then the preparation, most of the time you aren't doing it in the same body of water that then the race is in.
You know, we're in Joburg, we don't have oceans. Yeah. So yeah, then you go down to Durban for your triathlon and there's this big ass ocean and you panic, you freak out.
And would you prefer a dam to the ocean?
I actually, after I did the Durban swim, I would much rather do the ocean. I'm so much happier in the ocean. I think it's maybe generally it is a little bit clearer, the water. So you can, there's like two parts to it. You can see where you're kind of going, but also, you can't see deep enough that what's under the water. But it's the fact that you can see. It's also just, it's more, I prefer the more natural waves, and I don't mind the waves.
So you don't, so the extra difficulty of the current and stuff doesn't offset you preferring that? I
mean, obviously you want it to be as easy as possible almost in a race because, you want that time.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the currents and the waves, and you're swallowing dam water and you're swallowing ocean water. I'd rather swallow the ocean water.
Feels cleaner. Well, it is.
Yeah, get some electrolytes in over there. But dams scare me actually. And I mean, I've swum in dams a few times on my own, but dams are scary.
It's surprising because the ocean will have more treacherous fish in there, but you can potentially maybe see them.
Yeah, well, I don't know why we want to see them, because I mean, if I did see it,
you don't want to see it.
I'd freak out. But it's, I don't know, it's a nicer vibe in the ocean. Like there's a vibe about the ocean where there's no vibe about a dam.
It feels almost more alive. So maybe you get more energy from
completely. Like the vibe is so different down at the ocean. It's, there's just, I don't know.
So maybe starting on the sand, running into oncoming waves.
Onto the waves. Yeah, you got to go under the waves. You got to get, getting knocked over sometimes. Everybody's jumping over the waves. No, it's a proper vibe. I love the ocean.
So obviously you did Mid-Mar and have done Mid-Mar many times.
I did Mid-Mar. And also like I would do it, but it's not, I'm not like jumping at it every year to go do Mid-Mar. For me, it wasn't exciting. You're swimming in a straight line from point A to point B. There's no waves. There's nothing. For me, there's just nothing exciting.
That's the distance you're doing anyway.
Oh, exactly.
And then it's like almost, okay, well, I'm doing a cycle and a run after this usually. Now, what's the point of just doing the swim?
Just doing the swim. So then you get like the 8 mile at the Mid-Mar. But also like, I don't want to be swimming 8 miles in a dam. Like
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's hectic.
I didn't even know you got that.
Yeah, no, it's hectic. So you get like an 8 mile club, and then you get like a little special badge at the end to say that you're an 8 mile swimmer.
Is that 10 kilometers?
1.6, so, oh God.
6 times 8.
Like 14 something.
Yeah, that's crazy. Good maths, guys.
Yeah.
But that is far, eh? What's the furthest you've ever swam?
The furthest I've probably ever swum is like 5.5. Yeah, I haven't got much further than that. There's no reason to go further. And by the time I hit like 1K, I'm done. I'm like, I'm bored.
Especially if you're doing it at the gym.
Yeah, that up and down. So actually, when I was down in Howick now recently, I didn't cycle. They went down for Berg 100. I got my friend to take me down to Mid-Mar so I could go do a swim. And the water was freezing. It was beautiful, but the water was freezing. I was completely on my own. There was nobody else in the dam. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go do my 2K swim, which I had on my program. And I got in there, I did 300 meters. I'm like, I'm out. I'm scared. Like, this is cold. I'm lonely. This is miserable. I'm going up and down, up and down. I was like, I'm out. I'm bored. I don't want to do this.
Would you do a solo swim in the ocean?
Probably not, to be honest.
I wouldn't.
No, I'm not brave enough for that. Yeah. No. I mean, even with boats and stuff next to you, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
The ocean, it's actually so terrifying.
No, it is, and you have to respect it.
Yeah, you have to respect the ocean because the fact that, the currents are strong. There's some crazy animals that we don't even know half of the ones that exist. Obviously, the depths that we're swimming in, we know of them, but they're still pretty scary.
Yeah.
And also the ones that are scary, most likely aren't going to do anything.
No.
But also,
you don't want to
with what you're wearing,
well.
you might look like something that is interesting to them.
Precisely. We're going to look like a good meal for
Have you
them.
had any scary encounters, or have you been lucky?
On my swims, no. And I think that's what kind of, especially at like your Ironmans, I think that what settles you is there's so many people, you've got your lifeguards out, all the boys are out there and everything. And there's never ever been to my knowledge, there's never been an attack at an Ironman. So I'm so settled.
So that's not even on your radar.
It doesn't even, and I think also, it might just be me, I'm obviously speaking for myself. When you go in, that adrenaline starts pumping, like that's the least of your worries. Like you're just trying to get from like you're trying to get to the end. I know a friend of mine at Mossel Bay, he kind of drifted out to the side a bit and he saw a shadow and he freaked out. He eventually realized it was his own shadow in the water because he had gone so shallow. But it still plays in your mind if you see that kind of thing, because you do still see shadows and there are still movements. But it's, for my mind, it's not even, it's not there.
Yeah.
So
how do I get over, I know the answer, but how do I just take the plunge?
Just do it.
Pun intended, maybe. But to get into the swimming aspect of it, just do it. That is the answer. I was hoping for some magic answer.
I don't know. There's so many people that ask, and I've tried, like I've sat there and I've gone, okay, what can you do to get them into the pool?
Push them.
Literally, you have to. There's a few of them, you actually put them on the dam and you just walk them into the water and you're like, this is it, go for it. That's the only way, because swimming is, it's not something I can teach you here. I can teach you in the pool, but you need to be in the pool. You have to get into that water. You need to get used to the, that body of water that you're in. You need to get used to the feeling of it. The stroke will come later and stuff, but it's that whole mindset of the water, because it's unnatural for us.
Yeah.
And it is like swimming in a pool, you're fine. You're not going to be too freaked out because you can swim. Going into a dam is a different story because there's so many other elements, that we've chatted about, that you then have to change that mindset, and that's a different teaching. So
you mentioned it not being as natural for us. What, obviously you got that swimming background, but what is in like a triathlon, what feels most natural for you that you enjoy the most?
I think coming from the swimming background, when I first originally started, was the swim. That felt the best for me. But I've always been able to run, not necessarily well when I first started, but I could run quite happily. So, if I take the swimming out of it, the run was my most natural. I'd never been on a bike, apart from like 2-year-old, 3-year-old kids, never been on a bike. So that was very unnatural and very weird for me, to try cleats in and, putting on helmets, and that was very weird. The run was probably the most natural.
Yeah, I think as humans, it is the most natural thing for us.
It's something that we all can do.
Yeah. Well, something about cycling for me, that I just feel like you do it with running as well, but you just get into more of a flow.
Yeah, that
with cycling and the rhythm and the rotation, and
completely.
It's such a nice feeling.
Yes.
And I was always predominantly, or have always been, mountain biking.
Okay, yeah.
But then when I did 94 on my mountain bike, I enjoyed the road so much. And whenever my dad and I like, okay, let's just go, do some road in the cradle. Yeah. That flow state that you get into is so nice with road. It's different to mountain biking. Mountain biking, you maybe on single track, you're getting a little bit of a flow, but that road
you have to be
flow,
so concentrated on that. So
that road flow you get is so different, and it's so fun.
It is
actually, and also your speeds are higher.
Completely.
Being in a bunch sometimes is the adrenaline of not like trying to overtake and use people for wind and drafting and everything. Yeah,
it is. Cycling is huge. I probably, obviously now with like the injury and stuff, I prefer the cycling. And it's just because also I can do it, but also as you get better with it, it gets easier. You can get into that flow state. You find that rhythm, and it's amazing. And on races, it's actually even nicer because obviously, and I don't know about 947, I've never done it, But do they close all the roads? All of them?
Most
of them.
everywhere where we ride is closed. Yeah.
And that's also nice because you don't have to concentrate.
Yeah, I mean, we rode on the highway and stuff, so that was really
yes,
cool.
yeah. That is, yeah, so you've got that big road.
Yeah.
So it's the same with Durban, you know, they close off that whole highway and you've got, I think like 4 lanes.
Yeah.
And you can just ride and you're not allowed to draft. So you're completely on your own.
You're not allowed to in Ironman?
Not in a half.
Okay.
No, it's...
How come?
It's too many people are on... no, is it? Why do I feel like I'm getting confused? No, you can't draft. A lot of people are on tri-bikes. And because your brakes, it's too dangerous.
Okay.
If you get too close to someone, you're too far away to brake. So it's the same on like your sprint tries. Most of the time you're not even allowed to try bike in a sprint.
Okay.
Because it's just too dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get your brakes fast enough if something happens.
Fair enough.
So that's also nice. You know, you're completely on your own. You've got 4 lanes to yourself.
Yeah.
And you can just literally, you're on a highway. So you just follow the line. You put your head down. You don't even look around you. And you just go. And it's such a rhythm.
Would you say, you know, that aspect of being alone, which is very addictive in endurance sport,
Yeah.
but would you say, firstly, are you an introvert, or do you think you became more of an introvert because you saw, or because you have the ability more to be on your own now?
On your own. I think I've always been a bit more of an introvert than an extrovert. So I think this is why maybe this also suited me, like the endurance sport, because I could be on my own and didn't have to make excuses for having to be in groups and all of that. But I can definitely see how it can make you more of an introvert. But a lot of people need the team. They need people around them in order to do things. So I think even in endurance sport, it still just depends on you as a person.
For your training predominantly, do you prefer training alone? Obviously like the swim maybe with other people, but...
No, sure. It comes and goes. I do prefer training. I must admit, I do prefer training on my own. I have like a group of people I love training with and I will happily train with them because I think we're all very much on the same wavelength and all of that. But, you know, predominantly I do most of my training on my own because it's hard to do it as a group all the time. You know, I don't want to have to wake up every morning and drive 13 kilometers to go do a 10-kilometer run. Like I can do it on my own. Like it's fine. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it on my own. Like I said, I've got my friends who I do it with and I'm happy to do it with, but I'm happy to do it on my own. And
what if
sometimes
it's like a 6-hour ride?
I think you can get very grumpy by the end of that 6 hours. So you'd rather be on your own and be grumpy.
Yeah.
But it's also nice to be, and you have to find the right people. So you have to find the right people who will sit with you on that 6 hours, and you can either have like this big ass conversation, or you guys can just ride in silence together. But you've just got that little presence next to you to keep you going and keep that motivation. So you have to find the right people in the sport as well.
Because you want to find the right people that will push you when you need to push, because sometimes we get a little complacent when we're by ourselves, but there's also other times where you don't want to have someone that's constantly talking about nonsense. Like if you're trying to push up a hill and then this person's like lagging behind and they're talking to you and you don't want to be rude by pushing
so you
away.
try like keep back a little bit. And
so it's also just navigating the type of people you're with and
it is.
the different types of sports. Like a long run, it's nicer. It's far easier to run with a group. Like if you're doing if you're running the cradle loop, so much nicer to do it with other people.
Because that is, then you can chat. Because normally it's a slower distance. You know, you're not sprinting through it. So no, completely. To have that company and have those conversations, whether it's, you know, intelligent conversations or gossip about, you know, the latest celeb, whatever it is, you know, just to have that interaction, it helps you get through it as well. Yeah,
it makes it go by quicker if it's just like a slow recovery or whatever type of exercise. If you've
definitely got those sessions where you've got to put it down. Then I want to be on my own. You know, then I want my headphones on and I don't want anybody else talking to me. And you have to have those sessions as well. And even like we do, I used to do track, you know, you're with a group, but you're running your own pace because, you know, you've got your guys running at 3 minutes a K and then you've got your guys who are like running 7 minutes, 6 minutes a K. So you're all spread out, but you've still just got that energy there, and you've got people, you've got the 3-minute people to push you. You're like, cool, like, let me try keep up with them, or let me just try like not let them, disappear too far. So there's definitely different things, but yeah, when it comes to like endurance, you are alone a lot of the time. And it's okay. I don't mind it.
Yeah. No, I love it.
I'm happy to be alone.
I really love it. And it's actually interesting. Sometimes, like when I was doing a lot of trail running, you go for like a 4 or 5 hour run by yourself in the mountains. And then you speak to people afterwards, and it kind of feels like you're like watching yourself speak to people, and it's like, I don't even know, how do I interact with people anymore?
It is. And also you haven't spoken. So like your mouth hasn't moved or anything. So you're like, trying to like articulate your words.
How do I speak again?
Does this sound right? Does it make sense? It is a very strange concept of being on your own. And also cycling as well. You can be out there for 4 hours on your own. I mean, I don't know how long you were out there on Saturday for, but
Saturday, like only 3 hours.
Okay. But even still, like 3 hours, you're not chatting to anyone.
Yeah. I like the aspect, like Saturday I rode by myself, or Sunday I couldn't find you guys.
Oh, it was Sunday, yes.
Sunday. Yeah, because I rode both days.
Yes.
But so Sunday my intentions were to ride with you guys, obviously, but Saturday was just by myself.
Okay,
and it was in the rain. I didn't have a planned route, so that's nice when you're alone. Where it's just, let me just go this way. Let me just go this way, and I like that aspect of it. Like every morning, I'll decide where I'm going to run. Obviously, if I know I want to prioritize hills, maybe I think beforehand.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like the moment I take those first steps, then I decide where I'm going to run.
Yes.
So I think that aspect of it is quite fun when you're by yourself as well, because it's
you
like
can just
adventurous.
do what you want. Yeah, and if you get lost, it's cool. You make your own route. You jump over fences if you need to, and it is. You gotta find the fun element in it. Otherwise, it gets too strict.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into your injury, but your intentions have obviously tried and working towards becoming a professional. So there's also that aspect of, okay, well, this has to be strict.
Yeah.
This has to be a particular way. I can't just look at it as fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure obviously you've had to try and navigate that.
Yeah, no, so I've basically been doing triathlon. This is going into my 4th year that I've been doing it. For 2 of those years I've been injured. But when I first started, I threw myself into it, like full time. It was literally training, eat, sleep. That was it. I had no social life. I lost a lot of friends, which is fine. Doesn't really bother me
because the right
friends stick around, and you find,
new friends.
You find the people that are right for you. And it was, you've got your program, and you want to hit those green blocks every time, no matter if it's, if you have to train at 10 o'clock at night. You're getting on that bike at 10 o'clock at night and you're riding your session. And it was, you got strict, but you throw yourself out of balance. You don't have that freedom. You lose that sense of fun in what you're doing. And I think a lot of new athletes do that because, you want to progress and you want to see the results and you want to do well. But you lose the sense of, you can still have a life. So Saturdays.
I think getting to that point of realizing, but also then your life has to be tailored still around it.
Completely.
Because to be the best, you can't have it all.
No, you can't. You have to get rid of things, and you have to decide whether that's what you want and if it's worth it. And that's what's, I think, special about pros is they've got that mindset and they know what they want and they're willing to work for it, which a lot of people aren't.
What were some things that you found, were there things that you found difficult to sacrifice in terms of like, obviously initially maybe losing some friends, it's difficult.
Yeah,
but
I think.
Weren't much of a jeweler like that
No,
kind of stuff.
so, my jeweling days were high school and I was pretty much done with that. And, a few years after school, I was happy to draw, but I got over that pretty quickly. I was happy to be like, introvert side of me. I'm happy to be at home. I've got my dogs, they're my life, they're my kids. So I'm happy to be with them, go for walks with them rather than going out for lunch and stuff with friends. And that was okay. I had to find the family life balance. That was the one thing I found hard. And that was the one thing I did try focus on. Because, obviously they're family and stuff. So, to go for lunches or go for dinners or even just to see, like go over to them, have a coffee or whatever. I lost that at a stage. You know, I would go for lunch. I'd be like, yo, guys, like, I got to go now. You know, it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, I want to go home and everything. And you kind of lose the enjoyment there. And I struggled with that. Managed to find that again, but struggled with that. Also, I was in a relationship right at the beginning. And thank goodness that ended, actually, because it opened up my freedom to do this on my own.
So going into, I want to talk about that. Because I've also been in relationships where I had to be selfish to a degree. Well,
no,
selfish,
you do, yeah.
And it was feeling guilty to go ride and 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday, and then you get back, half the Saturday's gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only time maybe you would have had with them.
Yes.
So that's also a challenge. But then it's just about finding the right partner.
Completely. You have to have the right partner. And and I've learned through some of the guys that I ride with that you don't necessarily have to actually have someone in the sport you're doing. As long as they are happy and content in their life and they've got things that they're happy to do on their own, you're fine. You know, we've got one guy whose wife is so supportive. I mean, they are the perfect match. You know, he'll come out for 4 or 5 hour rides and she has her morning to herself and she's happy. She's like, cool, go. Like, I want my time on my own. I'm going to go take the girls. I'm going to do my nails, do shopping, whatever. You have to just find someone who's happy to compromise that and who's happy and who has, they're happy with themselves. Because I find if they're not happy with themselves, they're going to take it out on you. And that's a big thing. So, I mean, it's definitely easier to find someone who's happy to go out on a 4 hour ride with you. You know, don't have to be together, but, you know, happy to do that. But it doesn't necessarily need to be someone in the sports.
Yeah.
It just,
I think in terms of how I've tried to look at relationships, it's not, okay, I have to find a girl that cycles and runs and does all these things. I just need to find someone that's passionate about something.
Something, completely.
Doesn't matter what it is, but if you're not passionate and you just kind of, you know, move your passions along with your partner's passions, it's when your partner, because they originally are passionate and they want to focus on it, you kind of feel lost. And then you think that they don't love you. But it's when you shouldn't have to be with your partner, like, you know, and be everything and their only obsession.
No,
I think that also becomes very unhealthy where it like becomes too codependent, where it's like, but why can't I go cycle for 4 hours? I would happily want you to have your passion that you go and do, even if it's just having breakfast with your friends.
Completely.
Like, it doesn't have to be health or sport or whatever related. It's just have something that gives you fulfillment other than like me. Yeah.
But you have to. And that's why when you're doing endurance, you have to be, and I say it, you have to be careful with who you choose, because you have to have someone who's happy to do things on their own, because they will be doing things on their own. And it is what it, and you have to be selfish, but there also has to be compromise. So maybe there is a Saturday where they want to do something with you and you have to give up your 5 hour ride. Maybe you quickly do like an hour trainer ride indoors, or, you know, do a run instead and spend the rest of the day with them. You know, you can't go, cool, Saturdays are my day for riding. Like, don't ask me to do anything. There has to be compromise, you know, and you have to, you know, maybe if you don't enjoy their hobby, if they've asked you to come with them one day, go with them. You know, there has to be that.
It has to be equal. There has to be equal give and take.
It has to be give and take. And there has to be that trust as well in it, because, you know, you out for 5 hours a day with people they might not know. And it also, you know, it sits on them as well. They're like, okay, but you're spending 6 hours every Saturday with these people. I don't know them, you know, so they also you have to be with someone who's confident in themselves, like big time. And also who's supportive, very supportive. That's a big thing. They have to be supportive. Otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think the supportive aspect, because, and it doesn't mean that they have to be there at every aid station or helping you in that way, but it's, you know, it's, okay, well, I see that this is their passion and they're getting up at 4 a.m. Yeah. I want them to stay in bed and cuddle with me. It's like, okay, maybe once, every now and then do that, completely. Sure. But you can't, why are you getting up again?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that.
Turn your alarm off, gosh.
Yes, yeah. Like, just sleep in. Why can't you do that? And I think that's where you need that support, where they
Yeah.
might not understand,
No.
but it's okay, cool. This is what they enjoy.
Completely.
And I think you also, it makes you understand better. Like when we have these passions, then when our partner would want to do something that we don't understand, it
Yes.
helps us understand because we've got something that we're passionate
Yeah,
about.
exactly. You understand what they're going through. You understand their feeling, and you know that they want to do that. So cool, we want to do this. So I understand how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing, and it's happy. You know, when you've got that co-balance together, it's happy and things work, and you know, it's nice. I've always said, I originally said, I was like, I need to find someone in triathlon because, then it just works. It's easy. Like we all understand each other. But at the same time, you also want somebody who's out of that equation, because I don't want you to be doing something with me 24/7. But you can do triathlons together and not do it together.
Yeah.
So you have to look at all aspects. There's that complete give and take. There's that complete balance between the two. You have to take that family time, that friendship time. You have to figure it all out on your own, and if you're in a relationship as a couple.
Yeah.
So this endurance thing is huge. And I mean, and then you look at like parents as well, like mothers and stuff. And you're like, okay, but now you've got that aspect. So there's
the
a huge
the
thing.
husband, and then the kids.
And the kids. And then your training. That's massive. So like, whilst I'm still young, whilst I don't have a family, like do everything.
Yeah.
Be selfish. Because you can.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer to anybody. And that's okay.
And you've had to answer to your injury. Came knocking.
Yeah, that one was fun.
Yeah, so I've got a memory of a goldfish. I did try read it again this morning as well. So you messed up your vertebra, I'll say that.
I did. You got that
you
one right.
You want to explain a little bit when this, you said it was 2 years ago. When? No?
So no, this one was last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So this one it started in about July last year. So I've had issues with my back. So I herniated a disc in high school playing hockey. And unfortunately, once you've herniated a disc, it kind of reoccurs because you've weakened the disc. So I've had a few throughout the years, but nothing major. You go to physio, they put it back into place, and you're good to go. You're out for a week or two, just chilling, and then you're good to go. And this one kind of didn't go away. So I had back pain from July, and that was kind of normal for me with back issues and everything. It was normal, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then it was end of July. It was out of nowhere. I woke up one morning, and it was actually after a high rock session. And I woke up the one morning, and I had pain from my back down to my foot. And I couldn't bend down to put shoes on, couldn't put pants on, the pain was just so intense. I couldn't do anything, couldn't bend over, couldn't twist. And yeah, it got worse and worse from there. So I struggled then with sciatica. So it was pushing on the nerve. And yeah, the pain was hectic. And eventually August, I had to stop running. Couldn't run at all. Walking was also a bit of an issue, but it was still fine. End of August, I had to stop swimming. Couldn't stop swimming, which was, everybody thought that was quite unusual, but obviously the twisting in the pool and the tumble turns and just the twisting of the back. Couldn't do that. So obviously pulled out all my strength training.
It's obviously severe, because most people say, when you're recovering from something, go swim, it'll help you.
Well, that was it.
You couldn't even do that.
Everybody. So, I mean, I went to physios, I went to chiros, I went to bios, I had acupuncture, I did everything. And all of them, their first thing was carry on with your swimming. I said, guys, I can't carry on with my swimming. Like every time I was in tears, and the pool's a great place to cry because nobody can see you. So I was in tears, and eventually I just said, there's no point. You're going to damage it more. And they said, if you're not swimming, there's something seriously wrong, because exactly that. There's no pressure, there's nothing. But obviously that twisting just irritated the nerve, irritated the disc, and wasn't happy. So gave up the strength. And the only thing I could finally figure out that I could reasonably do was cycling. And I don't think it helped, because that, you're bending over, then you're sitting up, then you're bending over. I don't think it helped my injury, but it was the only thing I could do. And I needed to do something. So I was on my bike, and that a lot less. And obviously there was no intensity to it. I couldn't put down any power. That hurt. So I could spin my legs, and I could do easy rides. So I could do that, but otherwise I couldn't do anything else. And eventually, I mean, it was such a hectic injury. My brain almost switched off. For 5 months, I was numb. Couldn't feel anything. I couldn't think clearly. You don't know what to do with your life. Plans were cancelled. Like, I didn't want to go out. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't fun. It was hectic. And I went through a stage, it was like end of October, November, where I was actually passively thinking of like suicide. The pain was 24/7. You don't know what to do. And it's weird because I have the ability to go to the hospital and get things checked, but I didn't want to. I was just hoping it would go away. And because my brain wasn't working, I didn't think you need to go to the hospital. And I work for doctors, and they eventually said, they were like, you need to go for a scan. My coach said, you need to go for a scan. And I was like, I can't. Also, my medical aid are depleted. So now you're going for all these MRIs. It's, thousands and thousands. You've seen all these different doctors trying to figure, you're going to physios, going to chiros, it's like financially draining as well. So you almost just get to a place where you're like, I just don't know what to do, how to do this and anything. And you kind of just, you sit in like a bit of a limbo for a while. You don't know what to do. And eventually I'd still booked for Mossel Bay, the half Ironman in Mossel Bay. And I really wanted to race that one. So I said to my boss, I was like, let me just go for the infiltrations, which is basically cortisone into your back. And you have to have an MRI to have that done, because they have to obviously inject into the spine. So they use the x-rays and stuff to see where they're going. And I was booked into hospital, and I had 8 infiltrations into my back. And this was basically 2 weeks before Mossel Bay. So it gave that a week to set in and then a week for me to get to Mossel Bay. And when the MRI came back, my boss was like, you're out. Like, you can have these injections for the pain, but you can't run. The disc was so herniated that there was nothing that anybody could do to help it. And the injections did absolutely nothing. So eventually, I got that. And they said, this is so bad, it's not going to go back in on itself. You have to have the surgery. So I straight away went to a neurosurgeon in Pretoria, and he sat with me for 50 minutes, gave me all the options. He says there's fusions, obviously, which is not the worst thing you can do, but obviously you don't want to. And basically the best option was a full disc replacement of that disc, where they take that disc out and replace it with titanium. And I was in tears for like half an hour in that session, because, I was told, I'm not going to be able to run. I'm not going to be able to cycle properly. You have to take all that endurance sport out. And, doctors have to say that, for liability and stuff. But when you're still sitting there, it's still panic mode. So I said to him as I left, I'm like, I want this disc replacement. He's like, you don't decide now. You go home, you calm down, you think about it. They phoned me the next morning. They're like, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to go for this full disc replacement. They said, this was now December. They said, cool. He's coming back in on the 10th for you, and we're going to do it. So 2 weeks after my meeting with him, I was having surgery done. And it was the best thing I ever did, because that pain still like traumatizes me every now and again.
Yeah.
I've never ever felt, it's like someone is like taking like a knife and like slitting your leg like 24/7, and it just doesn't ease up. I was put on nerve medications, I was put on muscle relaxants, painkillers, anti-inflammatories. I was on all 4 of them at once at a stage. Nothing helped, like not even slightly. So, you go through these things, and obviously it takes you then out of everything. So as much as now you're going through all this pain, you're now also, you've lost all your happy things. You've lost your sport. You've lost, you don't see your friends because you're staying at home. You're going to work and then you're going home. So, you're not seeing your friends. You're not out on your bike. You're not running. You're not outside. Walking even got so I couldn't even take my dogs for a walk, because if they pulled, I couldn't handle it. So, I wasn't going for walks with them. So it was, you become very isolated. You obviously, like I said, you're not sleeping. So you're exhausted 24/7. You just don't even know what's going on in life. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know the time. And like every time somebody asked me, like, how are you doing? You just burst into tears. You actually just can't control your emotions. And something I wish nothing on anybody.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. And I mean, like, people who have back pain, will understand back pain, and people who have sciatica pain will understand that pain. People who haven't had both together will never understand that. It is insane. But yeah, I mean, obviously the surgery was, every time somebody's like, oh no, my back's sore, I'm like, surgery, go for surgery, just have it done. But it really did help. And yeah, and it was interesting, even through that injury, you try to look at the positive side of life and you're like, okay, things will be okay. This too shall pass. You don't even, like, I couldn't even think of those things. I'm like, this thing is going to take me out. And you try to think of the positive things, and people are so like, that support really rallies around you and they try and help, but there's nothing anybody can do. So if your mental side is not strong, you completely go downhill. And yeah, luckily I did have really good support around me. And obviously, like I said, my bosses are doctors, so they managed to really, really help me with, getting the help I needed, getting me into doctors, getting referrals and scans and all of that. And yeah, it was a very dark time. And I don't know really what managed to kind of pull me out of it. But I think it was just, I have a dream, I have a goal, and I wanted that goal. It was very hard to think of it whilst you're going through that kind of, that pain. But yeah, that was in the back of my head that I was like, I have to come back from this. Like, this can't be the end of this. And, there's fear in all of it, that even though I've got this now, and especially when I got that MRI back with that, with the disc, that fear was there that I'm never going to be the same again. Like, I'm never going to come back to how I was after this. And eventually I just thought, you're like, but you actually don't have to come back to what you were. You take this now and you make it better. You take this injury, you start from the bottom again, you start from ground zero, and you work your way up. You work on those weaknesses you had that you never worked on before. You build yourself into a new person. And I was actually quite grateful for that MRI to show me that, you've got to just change who you are as a person. Not as a person, but, you've got to change the way you do things if you want to get to where you are or where you want to be. And yeah, that was like a 6-month journey, which I never want to repeat.
Yeah. So obviously it was exceptionally difficult during, but what can you take from it? Obviously you mentioned reformulating kind of your way of doing things.
Yeah.
But what would you say, something similar happens again, or even a minor setback?
Yeah.
What kind of lessons did it teach you?
Well, it just, honestly, it might sound cliche, but it teaches you to be grateful for having a body that works, and being able to do these kind of things relatively easily. But I might have to have this redone in 20 years time. And I do have another dodgy disc. So, there is a possibility. It's not a big possibility. There is a possibility I might have to have something done again. And I just look at it, I go, cool, well, even if shin splints, stress fractures, all those type of things in endurance sports, you're bound to get niggles and injuries. And you just have to almost take that time and just listen to what your body is trying to tell you, because it is your body's way of just telling you, just slow down. Something is not right. We need to sort it out. So it is, you have to take yourself, like it's just taught me, I have to take myself back to the basics. I have to do those basic movements. I have to do my strength training, but nothing crazy. Like, I don't need to throw around weights. I don't need to go pick up my 90 kilo deadlift, which I used to be able to do. Don't need that anymore. I need smaller weights. I need strengthening of the body, of the muscles. I need that stretching. So, you have to, these kind of teach you that you have to take it back to the basics. And you have to realize that you're going to have weaknesses in your body, and you have to work on those weaknesses. It's huge in endurance sports. If you have a weakness anywhere, it's going to affect everything, because everything is connected. So if you've got a weakness in your foot, it's going to affect your back. It's going to affect your neck. It's going to affect your knees. It's going to affect your arms. So you really have to focus on those, and you just have to focus. Yeah, you have to look at and it's like cliche, but you have to stay positive. Like as hard as it gets, you have to stay positive. You read, I read one of my friends when I was in hospital, she brought me a beautiful book, Unequivocal, I think it was called. So it's about a guy who also like lost his legs and everything, and he carried on climbing mountains. And you just, you read stories like that. You go, I'm a full, able-bodied person. If they can get through things like that, I can also do it. You just have to put your mind to it. And it's easier said than done, because you lose that self-compassion for yourself. It's easy to say, oh, Jessie, you're injured, go do this, strength train, things will be okay, it's all right. But when it happens to you, there's nothing. You lose hope. That fear like comes back to you. And you have to find the brighter side of life. You really do, because otherwise life is very tough.
Yeah.
And you have to take things back to basics, and you go, cool, well, if I work on this, I actually build myself up stronger than what I was. And I can become stronger and quicker and faster and a better swimmer or a better runner, because I've now worked on what I wasn't working on beforehand. So it teaches you some lessons, and it humbles you. It puts your ego in check a little bit as well, because you're not able to do what you used to do, and also tells you don't need to do what you used to do because it wasn't right for you. And you just, it's a huge, I'm still learning, like I said, last week's training, I just completely overdid it. And you have to go back to that ground zero and start again. And it's being a beginner again and just learning all over again.
I was listening to a podcast once, and it's difficult to have this mindset, but let's say you get injured, and we always say, why me?
Yeah.
But we're not, when something good happens, thinking why me as well.
Yeah.
Or something bad happens, it's like, why me? It's like, well, why not me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not special. Like, these things happen to people all around the world. Like, that's just life. And unfortunately, it's going to happen. It might happen to a lesser degree to some person. It might never happen to some people, and that's okay. But something in some aspect is going to happen to people in this world, in this life, and it's not going to be something that they're comfortable with or want to happen. And that's just life. And life is unfair. It genuinely just is unfair. Why was I born into the family I was born into, and I didn't have to have parents that were struggling to get food?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think, well, why am I so okay, I have, but it's not like, there's so many difficulties in this world and in this life. And we are so fortunate, looking at those positive aspects of saying, your bosses were able to help you, you're able to improve from ground zero up and come back in certain aspects being better and having focused on other things, is like the only mindset that you can have is that positive one of realizing what can I do but make the most of what I've got right now? Because thinking, why me isn't going to change the fact that it happened. Like, it happened, and that's just the way it is. How can you, move forward past it? Which is sometimes easier said than done. And you do need to sit a little bit in your unhappiness for a while, but that's the only way to move forward. Because if you're always happy, you wouldn't be happy, because unhappiness wouldn't exist. Like, unhappiness does have to exist.
Yeah, you have to understand the dark
to
and
appreciate
light.
the good. And now, making your way back up and being able to train again can also build a new appreciation and a passion, and you can learn. You've probably learned so much about yourself that then, you can look like, I was able to get through that. Now losing my job, well, that's not a big deal, or this isn't such a big deal. Like, it puts things in perspective for you. And also, as you mentioned, seeing, other people who may be then crippled. And it's like, well, I can still walk. I can still, and I know I might not be able to do the same exact things, but I can get to a point that I can at least, be feeling that joy that I used to feel.
Yeah, it's completely all of that. And it's hard when, everybody's doing their races and, you're sitting on the sidelines and you're like, I can do that. Like, that's where I want to be. But, you also then find that inner support. You're like, cool, well, this is where I'm at the moment. So let me still be involved, but in a different way. And that's also a big mindset change. It also changes you have to be grateful for what you have. And it changes your whole mindset big time. I mean, when I was in recovery, it was 6 weeks lying horizontally on my back over December, whilst everybody's busy jolling in Cape Town and Plett and, wherever everybody's going. And there's me lying on my back watching the whole of Netflix, which I hadn't done for like 2 years. So, and I can't even tell you how many times I cried. Like, I was like, this is unfair. Why is this happening to me? Like, I shouldn't be lying on a couch watching Netflix for 7 hours a day. And, Tammy would come to me, like my friend should like come to my house, to cycle from my house. Then I'm like, that's nice. Like, I'm just going to sit here on the couch whilst I watch you cycle off. But you're still so supportive of it. Like, no, it's cool. Come to my house, come cycle from here. It's fine. You go out to your friends, you meet them at the runs and everything. And you have to have that whole mind shift change. Otherwise, it's hectic. But you do, like you said, you have to have that balance in, you have to feel the unhappiness. So I would sit and I'd cry and I'd be like, okay, this has happened and, this doesn't feel okay. And, you're never going to be where you were again. And, it's sore and this is hard. And like, what happens if it happens again? And what happens if I don't heal properly? And, I would sit there for like 45 minutes sometimes and I'd go, cool, you've got this 45 minutes, you get everything out that you're feeling and then you move on with life because this is not going to help. This isn't going to get you anywhere. You now figure out what you need to do going forward. So your goals are still the same. They actually haven't changed. The feeling of those goals, you want them just that much more. I want that pro card. And I've got to, I'm going to have to work freaking hard for that because I'm not a natural at this either. And now I've also got this setback. I'm not the young, like little generation anymore that's coming into triathlon. I'm at the older age. And, you now have to put your foot down and work, but you have to do it properly. If you want to do this, you do it properly. You have to do your rehab. So, they give you that little sheet after you get out. And, it's like these little like band pools and you're like, oh my God, like, this is like, it does. It's like so degrading. You're like, what the hell? And, you sometimes even ask you, they're like, don't even use the bands, just move your arms. And you're sitting there, you're like, I actually can't do this because this is not okay. But you have to just get through that and be like, this is what's making you stronger. This is what's going to get you back to it. I've also now gone to Pilates for my rehab. So I'm not seeing bios and chiros and all of that. I've actually gone to Pilates, which has been a game changer. And that is so hard, but it works on all those little weaknesses in your body. And just being at those Pilates sessions, like I feel positive going out of there because I'm like, this is helping me get to where I want to be. And
it's also parts that you've never really worked before.
Never. You don't. You
Pilates,
forget about them.
It shocks me actually how difficult Pilates is.
Me too. I didn't realize it was this difficult.
Yeah,
I can imagine how like you walk in there and you like do one session. You're like, this is different.
Yeah, there's parts of my abs and core that I've never experienced being
didn't even know they were there either. No,
and those are the parts that then when they're stronger prevent you from getting injured.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, we're working on those now Pilates and I'm like, I actually can't do this. She's like, yeah, because it's weak. I'm like, okay, thanks for that. But I get it because you don't work on that. And especially as, as a triathlete, and also like most endurance athletes, when you're doing your sport, you work on that sport 90% of the time. So as a triathlete, you're swimming, you're running, you're cycling, you forget the strength. Also like you don't have time for the strength because, we all working 9 to 5 jobs. We don't have, sometimes you're doing 3 sessions a day.
Can't work up at 2 in the morning.
No,
you're getting
she's
up
like,
at 4.
like we do need our sleep. And that's also the problem. You then also need your sleep. So with this, like it was trying to get like 10 hours of sleep, which I couldn't. But, you then trying to get your sleep. So everything then like roller coasters in your head and you don't know what to do with yourself. So it's, you figure it out. It's all just, it's a roller coaster still. It's learning curves. I still climb in my car every now and again and I like bawl my eyes out for 5 minutes because I'm just like, this is just hard. Like I'm on like a walk run program now. I'm like, I'm walking. oh my gosh, why am I walking? But you have to
But there
start
were also
somewhere.
then times where you obviously need to punctuate that by, being like, oh, I'm just walking. But there was times where you were lying in bed in December being like, I wish I could just walk.
Precisely. And I would go for when I was able to then start walking. Because, when they get you out of bed, hey, they get you walking straight away. I was still in ICU when the physio came to me. She's like, oh, let's go for a walk. And you're like, but I've just had surgery. Like, but you walk. So, you get home and they're like 10 minutes of walking every day. And you're like, 10 minutes of walking? Really? Like,
is that the workout for today?
Wow. But actually, you're so drugged up anyway that you do that walk. You're like, oh my God, I need to sleep. But, then you work it up to like 1K. And you're like, wow, really? I remember when I did my first 5K walk after that surgery, I think it was like 3 weeks afterwards. Like, I just wanted to I wanted to go out. I wanted to party or whatever.
You felt like
I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh, I can do this now. This is amazing. And then I got home. I was like, yo, this is a bit sore. Like, let me go lie down again. So, and then I did it. Like, I bawled my eyes out for that afternoon because I was like, that was so, it felt so great. But now I'm tired. Like, I'm really, really tired. And, I need to put my back brace on. I need to go lie down. So you have to just look at the balance. You have to look at the positives, the negatives of it all. And with everything, it's all just that balance that all just comes together. And you have to, have to look after it and have to be careful. And that's also another thing which you have to remember with injuries is, you don't get better overnight. It's a process. And
where are you now in the process?
So I'm still dealing with a little bit of an ego problem. But so I'm almost, what's today? 8th. So 2 days time, it'll be 4 months that I've post-surgery. So I'm actually still supposed to be in rehab. So 6 months of full on rehab with very minimal exercise.
What's minimal?
So it's very light indoor cycles, no running, swimming you can do, and very basic rehab kind of strength training. So it's, and obviously the Pilates, which would have counted as your strength rehab training. But I think also, people, you do progress differently. So I was lucky that
might be safe by saying 6 months.
Well, exactly. They have to for liability reasons, because if you do something and they haven't said it, you can go back to them and be like, yeah, but you said. And, also I'm lucky I went in as a strong person. I had a strong body already. So my healing would be better. But that's also where it's harder. And, my doctor said that to me. He's like, yeah, your athletes are the best patients to work on, but the worst patients to actually treat because you don't listen. And also because your body is so much stronger. That exactly what happened last week Tuesday. I felt perfect. I had no pain. I felt strong. I could, I was still, I downgraded the weights a tiny little bit, but they were still too heavy for what I needed. And I obviously just went still too hard. And my back is just like, we're still in recovery. We're not okay. And that afternoon, that inflammation just hit. And it was like, you're not okay. You can't do this yet. And it's, that puts you back into your place. It really hurts your ego big time. But I'm able to cycle. I'm with coaches now who I've got my program back. So that's why I'm on my walk run program. I'm on a cycle plan. I'm on a swimming plan. Strength, they give me certain strength exercises. And the high rocks are just thrown for fun because I enjoy it. It's what I came from. So I enjoy my high rocks. And I said to them and for them as well, it's a whole learning process. I don't know where I am completely with my body yet. So, there are days where, it's a bit achy and stuff. And the doctor said, you're going to have days like that for the rest of the year, even 2 years time. You're going to have days where it's sore because it can be, stick your brace on and you're good. So I still have to learn what I can and can't do still. There's no book written for this kind of thing. That's why there's a guideline and you just, you have to go with it, but you have to be so careful. And I think that's hard as well, having to be careful and having to always think about what you're doing and being like, is this too much?
Yeah.
Is this okay for me? When you don't know, you have to figure that whole aspect out. And I find that still very hard. Where I'm like, but I can push harder here. You know, I
But
can
then
do
2 days
this.
later, you're feeling
And
it.
2 days later, you're
Yeah.
like, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not someone, I don't take meds and stuff. So, you know, I've got the anti-inflammatories from the hospital, but I don't touch them.
You don't want to mask the pain.
No,
Yeah.
you know, I let it, you know, if it's gonna hurt, then it's showing me that I've done something wrong, and almost need to like, and that's also maybe bad, is I need to punish myself. I must now sit with this, let it heal itself, and then we carry on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's still up and down, but you know, I'm finding the positives in it, and you have to work your way up from here. And
Have you set a goal of the end of this year or next year? I want to do this. What have you, like, at bare minimum, you're like, I want to be okay to do this event?
Well, I stupidly decided I wanted to do High Rocks in July. Don't think that's going to happen. So I've kind of like struck that one off the record. But my main goal for this year is obviously if I get into Otter, I'd like to do Otter. But also, you know, I'm not going to push. I'm going to do that because I want to be out on the trails again. I want to be in the mountains, and I want to do something for my body again. So I'll do that. And then, but my main goal for the end of this year is Mossel Bay half Ironman. So I love that race. My favorite race ever. It's a tough race, but I want to do that one again, and I will aim for podium again. Whether I get it or not, it is a goal that I will aim for that. And then next year, sometime, obviously depending on how this goes, I'd like to do full. So I don't know if I will be ready for PE full, which is just been, so May. So I might look at like an international one later on in the year and do that and just, you know, tick that off the list. And then, but yeah, it's all just, you know, see how it goes from here now.
Yeah, one little milestone after the other to see how you cope.
Exactly. So yeah, you have to, but you also, there's, you know, like we said, you have to have a goal still. You can't just, I mean, some people maybe do it just for life, which is great. But, you know, as an athlete, you know, you're doing this thing for a reason. And as much as I love the training, I think like we all do, like that training it's fun. Like it's where we want to be. You know, you still aim for those races. And I love the racing. I love the racing side of it. I've got that little competitive edge, which I never had in school. I was never really competitive. I loved sports, but never did it. But now I found something which I want to be competitive in. And that shows that, you know, you want to do it.
Yeah.
So I will, you know, I'll do anything I can to make my back as strong as possible to get me to those races and to get me where I want to be, which is a bit nerve-wracking, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Because this is setting the goal of this and you're saying, okay, well, it's over. It's past my 6-month rehab. It's past this. But there's still that fear of, you know, what if something goes wrong?
Yeah, it's re-injury.
Because you're not just maxing out on race day.
Yeah.
You have to be maxing out before that to be prepared.
No, it's yeah, but that's exactly it. That training is, as much as it's sometimes fun, you know, and that's strict, you also, you know, there's times where you have to, you know, you're putting your foot like flat on that gas pedal. You know, you have to give it everything you have. And if something is not right, you're going to feel it in that training. You're not even going to make it to the race. And I mean, I've done some stupid things in my life. Like I did Durban half Ironman whilst I was in my moon boot. You know, I had to pull out on the run. Obviously, I can't run in a moon boot. But, you know, I wanted to do it. And I was like, I've done all this training and, you know, I'm out for 8 weeks in a moon boot, but I've got my entry. I'm going to do everything. Like, let me go do it. And I did it. I hated it. Sucks.
But you did
never do it. But I did it. And, you know, you've got that goal and you still achieve that goal. You know, it might not be to what you wanted that goal to be, but you've achieved part of it, and that makes you want to achieve more of it. You know, you want to do the full thing.
Because most people would have just pulled out.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and I mean, I was ready. Unfortunately, I had like my one Croc in my bag by my side because I knew I had to pull out after the cycle. So I had my one Croc, and then my cousin had my other boot. So I was like, guys, just give me my Crocs, give me my Crocs. I'll put them into sport mode. Let me run. I was also like so delusioned by that stage. Like, no, just let me do it. She's like, you only have one Croc. I was like, okay, guess I'm out. And you're like, okay, I have to come back and redo this. Like, I have to now finish this again. So it keeps you coming back for more, for sure. And yeah, you also have to learn to put that fear behind you. You have to, or feed off of it. Either way. So I've got a tattoo which says, the wolf you feed is the wolf that wins. And that's what I live by. Because you're going to have the dark, you're going to have the light, but you have to just feed the light more than you do the dark.
Yeah, because you could have sat in that depression and that's what would have won if you were feeding that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it comes back to also surround yourself with the right people. The support I've got through this is more than I ever would have thought. People I knew but didn't really know have become really like close to me, and I appreciate everybody. And it just, it shows you that people are also watching. And
people more people care about you than you might think.
Yeah, and that's that I realized over December. I was like, more people actually care about me than I knew I actually even knew. And and it's a good feeling. It's also, it's a good feeling that people want the best for you as well. As much as this is your own journey, people are there to help you on it. And it's huge, because especially coming through an injury, you have to have that backup.
Well, hopefully someone watching this will support you then as well. And good luck for the rest of this recovery and for Otter Trail. But that's the first thing that you'll be doing. That's
if I get
most difficult. If you get into it.
If I get into it, I'm on the waiting list. So entries come out in May. So maybe add yourself onto the waiting list.
That's true.
Come do it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that.
Entries come out in May. So soon.
Okay, but I must be on the waiting list.
Must be on the waiting list.
Yeah.
If it's still open.
I'll check.
We'll go do that.
I would love to, definitely.
It'd be so epic.
Yeah.
So epic.
Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting.
Oh, thanks, Jessie, for having me.
I appreciate it.
Really cool.
Good.
So, thanks.
And thanks, guys, for watching. Cheers.